Welcome to Penumbra. The conversation starts now. Good afternoon and welcome to Penumbra. I'm excited to have with me today Mr. Stefan Alvarez, who is the managing partner of ASG Luxury Real Estate here in Tampa. And just to set the stage with Mr. Alvarez, I'd like to recount the exact moment in time when I actually had the pleasure of meeting Stefan for the first time. I recall it was March of 2019. I was going to the hotel bar downtown to meet with Mr. Alvarez and some other colleagues who I would soon be working with. And I recall the day I was wearing a full business suit and tie, the whole gear, and in walked Mr. Alvarez wearing a black Lululemon collared, snugly fitted T-shirt, the ABC Lululemon pants. I believe they were charcoal gray, and some form of indoor soccer shoe. Is my recollection. And mind you, this was pre-pandemic and also pre-time when athleisure wear swept the nation. So Mr. Alvarez was way ahead of his time. And I remember thinking to myself, this guy's got it all figured out. And I think I made a comment to him about his pants. And from that day forward, we've been great friends. And so without further ado, I'd like to welcome Stefan Alvarez to the podcast. Thanks, Stefan.
Thank you, William, for having me. I appreciate that. That was a great introduction. Great memory. Yeah, that's right. Those ABC pants. I missed though. I finally had to retire those pants, unfortunately. But those
Yeah,
are my everydays.
that was exactly how I remembered it. I remember seeing you and I was like, man, this guy's got a got a handle on it. And we struck up a great conversation, a great friendship since then. So again, I'm pleased to have you here.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
And just to set the stage for what we're going to be doing today, Stefan, obviously you're a managing partner with ASG Luxury Real Estate here in Tampa, but you have done a lot of things before that. So why don't you just give me just kind of your background, where you grew up, where you were educated, and how you got started in the business?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think probably from our first introduction, like you recounted, I don't think I was ever meant to last or stay in big law for very long, but we'll get to that point of the story. So I'm born and raised in Tampa, one of the unique few, other than my wife actually, who is also born and raised in Tampa. We actually met when I was in third grade and she was in fourth grade at one of the schools here in Tampa, and then we grew up together. I went my separate way to Jesuit for high school, and then she stayed at Academy, and then we ended up getting back together actually when I came back to Tampa after a short stint at Florida State. But yeah, born and raised in Tampa. I lived in Carrollwood in North Tampa up until about seventh grade. And then my parents moved us down to South Tampa going into seventh and eighth grade, right before high school, basically. So
Okay.
yeah, I've spent the majority of my life in the Tampa Bay area. It's part of the reason why I've started the businesses I've started here to give back to the community here locally. As I mentioned, I went to high school at Jesuit. I was actually just there a month or so ago, speaking at Career Day, which was pretty crazy to be back because that campus has changed completely since I went there. I don't want to age myself, but I graduated high school. I guess I'll age myself. I graduated high school in 2003. The campus has changed tremendously since I graduated from there. And yeah, it was really cool. I got to speak at Career Day, meet with some juniors and seniors in the classrooms, which was neat and kind of took me back because there's two buildings that have not changed since I was there. That's where we were speaking, which was really cool. After graduating Jesuit, I went to Florida State, which was great. Had a little too much fun though when I went over there.
It happens.
Yeah, I think it's part of the Florida State curriculum, to be honest with you. But it was honestly a blessing in disguise. I feel like everything throughout my life has, I think, like anything in life, has served a really good purpose. And so yeah, I went to Florida State, had a great time there, met a lot of great people, but quickly realized this is probably not the best environment for me academically and just life-wise for 4 years. So I ended up coming back and finishing at USF. But again, it happened for a reason because that's when I met my wife. I mean, we met, like I said, when we were children, but that's when we actually connected, started dating, and now 20 years later, have two amazing boys here in Tampa. Yeah, so I finished at USF, and I don't know if you want me to go through the whole story.
No, sure. I can fast forward a little bit. I know after USF, you moved up to Washington, D.C., and you dabbled in the political world for a while. So just tell me a little bit about that, coming from Tampa, moving to D.C., and what it was like, jumping into that whole scene up there, and what was your takeaway when you left?
Yeah, DC, it had a lot of good things and a lot of bad things. Finishing USF, it was one of those situations where I think, like a lot of people, I had no idea what I wanted to do when I graduated college. I always knew as a kid, like I was a voracious reader as a kid growing up. I played a lot of sports, so I was very competitive. And so I think because of those two things, and I always had a passion for history. It was actually my major because I started with business, didn't love business, which looking back, maybe should have stayed in business based on what I'm doing now, owning and running different businesses. But I always had law in the back of my mind, but I wasn't sure that's what I wanted to do. Obviously, taking out student loans, committing financially and the time to go to law school was a massive commitment. So, like a lot of things in life, it was kind of happenstance. So I was graduating USF. A friend of my sister's boyfriend at the time happened to be in town, and we were all kind of hanging out one night. And he was living in DC at the time. He was a lobbyist up there. And so we got to talking, and I told him, yeah, I have an interest in law, but I'm not sure if I want to take that leap quite yet. I kind of want to make sure that's what I want to do before I do it. So he's like, well, you should come up to DC. There's so many job opportunities up there. If you're interested in law, at the time I was really passionate and interested in politics too. He said it's the perfect place, and it's just a really fun town and city, especially if you coming out of undergrad go working on the Hill. Because I'll be honest, it's such a pretty much every single one of those congressional offices staffed by somebody that just graduated college. It's a very young environment on the Hill. So yeah, so that's what I did. I took his advice. I didn't know anybody up in DC other than him. And he introduced me to a few people because he was pretty well connected as a lobbyist at the time. But it was a lot of me honestly taking my resume and just banging on congressional offices that I thought I wanted to be in, trying to set informational meetings at the time with the legislative directors, the chief of staff for the Congress member, and eventually I was able to get a job in a Georgia office actually. And so
And who are you working with up there?
are we gonna disclose that?
Sure.
I worked with Congressman Tom Price at the time.
Okay. And did you and Congressman Tom Price, did you guys facilitate any impactful legislation while you were working for him?
Well, at the time, it was we were in the minority, so a lot of it was just kind of for the minority party to try to hold the line a little bit on things, irrespective of your political persuasion. It was really interesting because it was during like the cap and trade times, which was one of the big pieces of legislation that was trying to be pushed. Among other big bills, but to be, I did it for a year. So I worked in his congressional office, and then actually during summer session when everyone breaks and goes back to the districts, I went to Maryland and I helped run a congressional campaign for the first district of Maryland at the time, which was really cool experience. And typically when you go work in DC and on the Hill and you're like a young staffer, working a campaign is obviously a great way to potentially quickly move up because if you win that campaign, that member's got to figure out how to staff up their office. And so you can quickly go from like a legislative correspondent, an LC, to like an LD, legislative director type role if you wanted to. So that was kind of my idea thought process. Unfortunately, we came up about 700 votes short in that election. That member though, it did end up winning the next cycle, and now he's a stronghold candidate.
So how long were you up in DC?
So that was a year. So that was between undergrad and law school. So I worked on the Hill in Congress for a year. Again, great experience. In my personal opinion and experience, it's an interesting world. It very much felt like a bubble to me. And it wasn't a bubble that I wanted to stay in for much longer than the year that I was there. I wanted to get out of it. My wife, my then girlfriend, now wife, was finishing her MBA at USF. And so we had already done a long distance of a year, and that was enough for us. So I wanted to get back close to her. So that's how I ultimately ended up back in Tampa going to law school at Stetson. And also at the time, or I thought I wanted to be a trial attorney, and Stetson, I think they still do, to be honest with you. But back then they were the number one trial ad program in the country. And that was another big draw for me, was to go to Stetson to get back close to Janina, my now wife, but also to do their trial program, which was number one in the country.
Yeah, they always have a fabulous moot court team, like a nationally recognized moot court team. So after you graduated law school, where'd you go to practice?
So after law school, actually, so I got married, graduated law school, took the bar, and then took a job back up in Washington, D.C., but this time not on the Hill. So, I mean, literally it was like bam, 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 like March, got married, graduated, bar, and then took an opportunity to go work actually as a lobbyist off the Hill. But it wasn't like your typical or traditional like K Street lobby firm type situation. I actually worked for an affiliate of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, which is one of the world's largest trade associations. But I worked for an affiliate called the Institute for Legal Reform, and their entire mission was essentially significant domestic and international legal reform policy for its member companies, which included, a lot of insurance companies, manufacturers, Fortune 500 companies, things like that. that was great because in a lot of my focus was a special program at the time that was kind of spearheaded by the head of the Institute for Legal Reform, who was an amazing mentor of mine, Lisa Ricard, and just an amazing human being. Probably one of the best individuals that I've ever had the pleasure to work with and learn from. And she was also an amazing attorney in her time when she practiced before taking over as the president of ILR. And then also I got to work closely with Tom Donahue, who was the president of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. And no matter what your political persuasion is, if you just look at his resume and the change that he was able to affect during his time in that position over a couple of decades is pretty unbelievable. It was great because I didn't have to be on the Hill. I wasn't really doing a ton of domestic policy work. It was more this special program and then a lot of international legal reform, which was great.
And then ultimately, when that job concluded, you moved back to Tampa and started practicing law, right?
Yeah. So what happened was I did that for almost 4 years right after graduating law school. At the same time, we were about to have our first son, and we both born and raised in Tampa. All of our family was still here. We were close to staying up there. But long story short, we looked at each other one day, like a month before we had our first son, and we're like, listen, we're putting off the inevitable. We should probably head back home. So we made the decision, no joke, like 45 days before having our first son, to move back home. Left a very, very good, comfortable job situation over there, and actually kind of took a step back in a way. Because going back, one of the jobs I had lined up, graduating law school, if I had stayed in Tampa, was to actually go work as a prosecutor for Mark Ober, who was the state attorney in Hillsborough County at the time. And that was like my plan. Like, I'm gonna go to the state attorney's office. I'm gonna work as a prosecutor, get a ton of trial experience, and then go on into private practice. The DC opportunity took me in a different direction. So I actually ended up going backwards. So to get my foot back into the practitioner world here in Florida, I ended up taking a job as a prosecutor with Mark while he was still in office there. And so that's how I got back to Tampa. It was a temporary kind of step back professionally and financially for us. But again, it was one of those things where looking back, it was probably one of the best decisions I've ever made, that we've ever made as a family. But also as far as practicing law goes, in my almost 10 years plus of practicing, it was probably one of the best experiences I've ever had. I mean, there's nothing that I can compare it to as far as like the collegial team atmosphere, especially coming from an athletic and sports background. It really is like a team environment in there with all the other prosecutors that you work with. The trial experience, anyone that asks me if they want to get into trial work, what they should do or where they should start, that's always my recommendation.
Right. You're gonna get jury trials right out of the gate, and you're gonna get a bunch of them, whether you like it or not. And so it's just, throw you into the deep end, see if you can swim, and then you can take those skills outside of the criminal and prosecutorial world into the private practice where you went next, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like you said, it's like drinking from a fire. You got to figure it out. But that's where I think the team and collegial atmosphere comes from, because a lot of the senior prosecutors, you're leaning on them for support, and they're helping you in the middle of a hearing, in the middle of trial, whatever it may be. And then you have the opportunity, if you're a misdemeanor, to take on and sit second chair on felony trials with felony prosecutors. So yeah, it was great. It was a great experience. Got tons of trial experience, which has served me well, I think, not just in my next step career wise going into private practice, but also in the businesses I'm in now. But again, young family, it was a big step back financially. And unfortunately, I do always say, if I could have made money being a prosecutor, I'd probably still be there, to be honest with you. But unfortunately, the reality is that, if you want to make a different type of income, you ultimately have to leave the office. And so that's what I ended up doing. I ended up leaving and going into private practice, starting with a small plaintiff's firm briefly, where again, it was me kind of leveraging a ton of my trial experience. That was a great experience as well, or opportunity, because I got to actually see a little bit of how to run a business, how I wouldn't run a business, or how I would run it differently, I guess, because at the time, that firm, we were just kind of starting out together at the same time, with the guy that was starting to practice. And then from there, I quickly went into the big law world. I kind of took the step over into the defense side of things and started at Butler Pappas, or Butler, Weidmuller, Katz and Craig, and had a stint there before joining the firm that you and I got to meet at, thankfully. Um,
And the firm you and I met at was a big law firm. I believe is a national firm, about 3,000 lawyers nationwide, offices all over the place. And it had
yeah,
that big law feel to it, whether it be a good feel or a bad feel. It certainly had that big law feel. And then obviously after your stint in big law with me, you decided to go out on your own and start your own law firm. So tell me when that first when that idea first formed in your head and you decided like now's the time for me to make that leap, and how you went about that, and what happened from there.
Yes, I think I always wanted to start or have my own businesses. And so every single experience that I've had that I can look back at professionally has probably led me to the decision that I finally made, which was to leave and start my own business. Initially, it was my law firm. But to your point, we were like a lot of people, COVID was really the facilitator or the incubator and like what fast tracked me to making that decision. So yeah, big law is its own kind of world and experience. It has its good things, like you said, and its bad things, obviously, like any place in any business. But COVID happened, things slowed down for us for not for very long, maybe a week or two, but it was long enough for me to kind of take a step back, look around at my family life, my personal happiness, where my time I'm a workaholic no matter what I do. That's just my DNA and nature. But it was more me looking at is my time that's being spent in my profession, am I getting the ROI personally for my own personal happiness? It's going to take me away from what really makes me the most happy, which is my wife and my boys. So with COVID slowing things down and me taking time to think about that, and then also looking around at like our partners in the practice at the time and realizing, this idea, this concept of being golden handcuffed to a law firm is a real thing. And I also I don't want to have time go by and have myself in a situation where, 2, 3, 4 years from now, I wasn't able to do it because I was kind of financially pigeonholed into staying in that practice. So, with the blessing of my wife, because it was a big decisions and another big step back for us, I made the decision like now it's now or never kind of thing. And worst case scenario, if it doesn't work out a year from now, aside from the ego bruise, I can always go get a job at another big law defense firm if I needed to.
So at that time, you made the decision to leave Big Law and launch what became Alvarez Legal Group, right?
Yes. So that was the first business. And at the time, so I left. The first business was Alvarez Legal Group. But in the back of my mind, again, I always knew my other ultimate goal was that I just didn't want to practice law in the traditional sense anymore. And so ALG, Alvarez Legal Group, was the easiest and best way in my mind to at least hopefully start making some money so that like we can still live as a family. But eventually my goal was to like use it as a pivot to what I'm doing now every day. But yeah, that was the first business. I started the law firm. It was also a huge risk though, because it was the complete opposite. I've kind of flipped sides as far as what you and I were doing at the time in litigation.
You went to the dark side, as some people often describe it. But however, if you represent insurance companies, the other side might call that the dark side. So it depends on which side of the fence you sit on.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's all relative and depends on your perspective. And both sides have their dark side, to be honest with you. But yes, I switched sides, but it was a huge risk because I wasn't taking any clients or a book of business with me necessarily. It was kind of me like I didn't have, one. I'll be honest, if I think about it, if you look at it on paper, someone would be like, "This guy's of his mind. What is he thinking? Leaving this like comfy situation. He doesn't even have like a warm like foundational client to like lean on from day one with cases." But thankfully, it worked out. So yeah, I went to the dark side, and I was a marketing and sales like machine. That's all I would try to do at the time was because obviously I needed to build a caseload, and so I was able to figure it out and very quickly find some really good referral partners that were able to feed a lot of business at that time because that practice area was still kind of busy. It was before some of the legislative changes shifted that whole practice area. So it was a good run and it helped sustain me to get to then the next business. And that next business was really the bridge that I was looking for to get into real estate full time. It was also, initially a means for me to subsidize because I was doing litigation and it was all plaintiff's work. And so it was contingency fee cases, right? And as you know, you're not getting paid on those cases until you settle them. And sometimes the life cycle of those cases, especially at the time that I was starting to do it, was getting longer and longer because defense firms and attorneys like yourself were making it really, really difficult to settle these cases. And the defense, these big companies know that time is on their side ultimately. And so anyway, the life cycle was anywhere from 8 to like 13 months, I would say. You'd have some that would settle quicker, but
So jumping into the plaintiff's world without any cases in the pipeline, so to speak, and waiting for a payday from 7 to 18 months. Obviously, I'm sure your wife's asking when that paycheck's going to finally hit the bank account. But you continue to bet on yourself, and that's kind of through line with you. Each venture that you jump into, you just continue to bet on yourself and keep pushing forward, and you're never satisfied until you obtain success. And that's kind of just you in a nutshell to me. And I know after you started your own firm, you partnered up and became partners in a title company, and then after that, you essentially launched what is the ASG Luxury Real Estate Group, which you have going today with a few of your partners. So let's just
Yeah.
fast forward and talk about ASG, how that came about, your relationship with your partners, and what you guys are doing right now in the Tampa market.
Yeah. No, exactly. So, like you said, the next business. Well, first of all, thank you. I appreciate the compliments there. But yeah, so the title company was the next business, and we're still. That's one of the best things that I've done, and I've got great partners over there. I think we do a great job. We're one of
And what's
the
that title
best.
company's name?
Serenity Title is the name of the company, and so we do title and escrow services throughout the entire state of Florida, and it's been a great business to be in. And that's really, that business is what led to what you were saying earlier. Then, a couple years after starting that one, getting it kind of settled, having the business in a really good place, but also looking for ways to continue to kind of leverage the real estate experience, exposure, the legal experience and exposure that I have, and all of kind of these institutional referral partners at a professional services and business and company level, of how to continue to further integrate and provide value ultimately. And so, to me, the next best business or step to provide additional value to our clients and people that we help at Serenity Title was to start ASG. And that's how Albert Schomer Group came about, was trying to find another way to provide value for folks. And so, my partner in that business, Alan Schomer, and I, we've known each other since second grade. Kind of similar theme, I think, throughout our talk today. Also born and raised in Tampa. He's got deep roots and network in the Tampa Bay area through his family. His wife is a part of the business, Christine Schoenbrunn. She's kind of the brains and architect in a lot of ways behind the brand and creative for us. And then my wife, Janina, is also a critical part of the business, and kind of the muscle and brawn behind a lot of the partnerships and business development things that we do day to day. So yeah, I mean, it comes with a fun dynamic, but ultimately, to kind of go back to the original theme, so Janina has left. She left her very comfy corporate job to work full time with us, and it's been amazing, to be honest with you. I know people will. It's early, but at the end of the day, literally, I would break from a meeting before Nina and I worked together. And as soon as I left a meeting, she was my first phone call in between meetings. So we were already always talking every day. I was always talking to her about things going on in the other businesses. So this was like a natural progression for us, and was ultimately like my dream was to figure out a way and find a business to create that would allow her to come work with me full time. Maybe that's selfish, but it's been great, and she's loving it, and it's only made our business that much better to be all working together, which has been fun.
And obviously, and we've mentioned COVID a few times in our discussion, but post COVID, there was literally from a realtor standpoint, a veritable gold rush of sales. Specifically, the Tampa market was one of the largest movements of people from other states to the state of Florida, specifically the Tampa Bay area. Um, are you still seeing that type of influx, or has that obviously calmed down, post COVID? And where do you see the market going from here?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's definitely, as most people can see now, it's cooled off. The market is definitely settled. I'm still very bullish on our Tampa Bay market, though. I think, and there's micro markets to me within Tampa Bay. So even within, let's say, South Tampa, the Heights, Ballast Point, each one of these neighborhoods almost are little micro markets within the broader Tampa Bay market. But it's certainly cooled off. And I think, honestly, that was part of the reason that I wanted to start the sales business to begin with too, was, like you said, during COVID, one, the barrier to entry into this business as a realtor is so low. And as you can imagine, just like with attorneys or any industry, there are a lot of really good practitioners, and there are a lot of really bad ones. There are a lot of really good agents, especially in our Tampa market. I get the privilege of working with them day in and day out on transactions or at the title company, but there are a lot of really bad ones too. And so that was another big reason why I wanted to start the business, was I just saw a massive gap in the services side of the real estate industry from an agent perspective. So that was one of the unique things, that's why we built ASG the way we built it, where, coming from a legal background and a big law background, I'm always looking to create a business where there are systems, there are processes, and it's tough. There's a lot of solo agents out there, and they've got big brokerages that are backing them, which is great. But I feel like the way that we've set up the business, it really does feel, from a client experience perspective, like you're working with a company. but not in the bad way. And the idea or the goal is in all the good ways, meaning you're getting a white glove touch and service at every level and at every stage of a transaction, from the consultation all the way through post closing and years after you've closed on your property. And that's kind of what that's our goal and our outcome that we're always seeking at ASG. Um, to answer your original question about the market, like I said, I think it's cooling off. I think I just actually talked about it in a video yesterday. Like anything in real estate right now, if you price it well, it's going to move, it's going to sell, and we're seeing that ourselves. If you're not pricing in today's market, it's going to sit. I mean, properties year over year, I think have doubled as far as like time on market. But I think prices, we're not going to see a significant drop, in my opinion, in prices in our immediate market area in South Tampa. Yeah, the same thing. I mean, inventory is up year over year for sure. We've entered a buyer's market. And so buyers have the luxury of being picky, combined with rates obviously keeping a lot of buyers on the sidelines right now. I think as of yesterday, rates had ticked up a bit to almost 6.44%. So that's holding some buyers on the sideline. But at the end, also some of the turmoil that's going on internationally has also spooked a little bit of the market, and then that trickles down to buyer sentiment. But same thing, as rates have ticked up, according to some studies, the purchase interest from buyers increased. So it ticked up a bit, not significantly, but to me that says that buyers are still active. They're still looking for opportunity. They just have the luxury to kind of wait right now. So it's creating some pressure with inventory. It's creating also, there's a lot of new construction inventory that has come online, especially post COVID, but then also post hurricane. And so that's another area of the market in the new construction space where some of these builders, they have inventory, they're holding it. It's a great opportunity to get into a new construction build at a lower price, because those guys they're running a business at the end of the day, right? And so they've got to get rid of or sell some of those new builds to make room for new starts on construction, and also new lot acquisitions.
In ASG, it's ASG luxury real estate, right? So not to pigeonhole what you guys are doing, but your focus is predominantly on the luxury real estate market, right?
Yeah, I mean, we do everything though. I
Okay,
mean, we've sold properties that are, $200,000 all the way up to $8 million. So no, I mean, that's our niche, and our branding is geared towards the luxury market. But we help and we handle all types of properties and transactions. Yeah, I mean, and that includes dirt too. That's one of our other specialties at ASG, is we're able to source a lot of off market dirt, which we then will try to find ways to uh, maximize the return for the family that owns that dirt, to then also turn it into a new opportunity for someone to build something new for the next generation to create their family home in.
great. And as an entrepreneur and business owner, what would you say? What was one of the early mistakes that you made that really shaped you into who you are today, and how did you learn from?
Oh man, that's a great question. It's one of the I made so many mistakes early on. You know what my biggest takeaway, if I'm answering that question truthfully, I made a million mistakes and I continue to make a million more mistakes. But I feel like what's helped, each one of those mistakes has made me a better business owner, a better boss, a better husband, a better father. Like all of these things, I'm constantly taking a lesson. I'm never too proud to look myself in the mirror and say, you don't know everything, and this is an opportunity for you to get better. This is an opportunity for you to figure out, let's say it's happened more than once, if I'm noticing the same feedback or the same mistake, but it presents itself in different ways, but at its core it's the same conceptual mistake. I'm always trying to look at that and figure out, okay, what can I do? Because I can only control myself at the end of the day. What can I be doing, or what can I change within myself to have a different outcome or a different feedback loop from an employee or from a vendor partner or from a client?
That's a great answer. As a lawyer, of course, deadlines are something that keep us up at night, and just the uncertain outcome of a case, and how things might work out for our particular client. But as a realtor, what keeps you up at night? What is something that, like, sticks with you through the late hours of the evening, and makes you worry, but at the same time energizes you and makes you keep coming back for more?
Uh, Man, really good questions. It's almost like you've done this before, or you're an attorney by background and you know how to ask good questions. Me up at night in the real estate space. I think at ASG, yeah, because it's different at Serenity Title versus ASG. But I think the through line for both of those businesses is the market. Because, and I just had a meeting this morning with a DRC with a DSCR lender, And we were talking about that. The fact that it's one of those businesses where you press restart after every single transaction. There's no annuity business. There's no long-term contract that you're executing that's going to guarantee your monthly revenue. Every single transaction, once it closes, you're pressing restart. And every single year, once you're, if you're on a calendar fiscal year, once your calendar fiscal year is done, you're pressing restart. You have things in the pipeline, but just because something's in the pipeline, anyone in real estate, in any business, lending, title, sales, they know that or new construction, nothing in your pipeline is as good as unless it's actually a closed transaction. It's closed and funded. And there's no guarantees that that's actually going to take place. So the market and yeah, having to constantly press restart, but it does, to your point, it's a great way you framed the question. It keeps me up at night, especially when we have bills and school to pay for and all the things with two kids. But it also energizes me. It's what motivates me and kind of like keeps that fire in my belly going to constantly get out there and do what I think is probably one of the things that I do best is just trying to go out there and sell and market. Um,
So pivoting back to the world of ASG, if you
yeah,
could eliminate one thing from your job at ASG tomorrow, what would that be and why?
emails.
Emails. I agree. I
I
agree. I'd
hate.
like to go back to 1974 sometimes.
I think about that too. Yeah, business still got done at a high level back in the 70s, but in emails and cell phones did not exist.
That's correct. And from my perspective, from the litigation standpoint, obviously emails add an exorbitant cost to any litigation when it comes to discovery. So if you could just eliminate the emails and go back to how it was in the early days where there was a couple of letters in the file and that's all you had as far as discovery, three letters back and forth and here you go, we can go try the case tomorrow, but not today. There's thousands and thousands of emails that have to be reviewed and looked at and the distinction between an email and a letter, obviously the thoughtfulness that goes into one versus the other
Right.
is
Yeah, you could probably look at statistics too and realize that the litigation rate was probably or anything was a little bit lower back then because writing a letter required a little bit more, like you said, thought, intention, and effort versus just firing off an email.
and also the time between writing the letter, putting the stamp on it, mailing it, and receiving it from, on the other side, it allows time for people not only to think about the situation, but also for the temperatures to calm down a
Yeah,
bit
exactly.
instead of banging out a furious email at your desk and hitting that send button and setting off all sorts of unknown consequences. They always say if you're in a situation like the best thing to do is write that email and don't hit send and come back to it maybe tomorrow and reevaluate. And the old adage was write the letter, put it in the drawer, and then, think on it over the weekend and then send it on Monday if you really mean it. But a lot of times that letter wound up in the trash. And a lot of emails probably should wind up in the trash as well before they get sent.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, when I was in my litigation days, there were plenty of emails that I would write up, all fired
Keyboard
up.
warrior.
I think I even brought you to my office and read you some of them, but
Yeah, it'd be, half of my job talking you off a ledge before you hit send, and thinking through the consequences of what that email is going to unfold. Once the
yeah,
other side, receives it at 5:59 on a Friday afternoon, it's not gonna be received well, and
no,
it's only gonna solicit another hateful email back in your direction, which would only solicit another hateful email going the other way from you.
no, they were always very professional and highbrow, but there were some subtle digs in there that I would hide, some little Easter eggs for the other side, really just for my own
You
entertainment, but
you were a
usually
ma
it was never
You're a
malicious.
master of subtlety. I will not disagree about that. Do you believe the current system in the buyer, seller, realtor market, do you believe it's serving the public as it should, or is there something that could be done to improve that process?
I think that there's always ways to improve any sort of process, especially when it comes to from a services industry standpoint, because that's what I'm in. Every single one of my businesses is a service industry business. So I think there's always ways to better improve it. I think that there were some changes that came down. I know a lot of people are aware of like the NAR litigation and that lawsuit and what supposed changes from a headline standpoint happened as a result of that lawsuit, but it really didn't make any significant industry changes as far as like commission and payments go. I mean, that was always negotiable. It was always something that you would talk about with your buyer client and your seller client prior to them signing an engagement agreement, just like they would sign an engagement agreement with a law firm. I think the industry has operated for so long in this world of like ambiguity, if this makes sense. That it's always been, especially from a buyer representation standpoint, where it's always kind of been ambiguous for the customer or the client to not have to commit to the broker or the agent to represent them in a transaction. Because I also think that because of the barrier to entry being so low, there's been this stigma or this misconception that real estate is easy. And I can tell you, I've done a lot of different businesses, a lot of different professional services industries, including, I think, litigating at the highest level at a big national law firm. And real estate's not easy. It is a very complex process, especially residential transactions. And for most people in the residential space, this is what's always boggled my mind too. It is probably, no matter what level of wealth you are at, it's all relative. It's probably going to be one of the most expensive individual transactions or purchases that a buyer, especially, or a seller will ever make.
And also
Right.
on top of that, it's gonna be a personal transaction, and you talked about a second ago about how you're in the service industry, as am I as a lawyer. Obviously, what we do is we're selling our services to our client, and then we're serving our clients as best as we possibly can to the best of our ability. And the issue with, you know, deal with, I imagine, a lot of first-time home buyers where they're about to spend more money than they've ever spent before, sign on the dotted line and commit themselves to 30 years of mortgage payments for the in the most part. And that, and I've been there, you've been there. That process as a young home buyer with a young family about to buy your first house, get a piece of the American dream for the first time, comes with a lot of anxiety that they look to the realtor to help them get through. And there's a lot of hand holding that goes along with that. I imagine a lot of late night phone calls, a lot of tears, a lot of uncertainty. But at the end of the day, tell me about what that's like when you close that first deal for that first home buyer, like the joy that it brings you to bring such joy to that type of family.
Yeah, I mean, that's the best part of the job in the industry. And that was another big reason why I wanted to get into it. I've always, whether it was as an attorney or now in real estate, that's always been one of my favorite parts is finding solutions for someone's problem and then being able to help like implement or execute that solution for them to help them. Like that, just helping people has always been like a big part of my motivation and inspiration for whatever I've done professionally. And so yeah, there's nothing better than, especially for a first time home buyer, but really any client that we have, first time home buyer to a seller selling what seems like a very expensive property, but internally they were going through a lot personally with their family or with a recent death that may have instigated them having to sell that property or wanting to sell it. So being able to finally get it across the finish line, like you said, it's a lot of late night phone calls, a lot of hand holding. There's a lot of like complex professional services work that needs to be done too behind the scenes that no one sees, including your client. And to me, that's the mark of a really good agent or someone representing you in the real estate transaction. So a lot of stuff that you should never see and won't ever see. But that doesn't mean that the work's not actually happening behind closed doors or underneath the water kind of thing, like a duck. So yeah, getting it across the finish line and being able to have a client or a first time home buyer come to you, thank you for being able to make the process smooth, easy, and put them into a property where they're going to be able to feel safe, secure, and raise, if they have a family, raise their family is one of the most rewarding parts of the business, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And just looking ahead in the future, into the industry and what's coming down the line in 5 to 10 years, how do you see AI? Obviously, it's probably impacting us right now, but how do you see AI playing a part in what you do on a day to day basis, and whether it's a net benefit or net negative to your industry?
Yeah, AI, I mean, at the end of the day, AI it's not going anywhere, right? And so I think in any industry, but especially in our business on the title side and on the real estate sales side at ASG, it's absolutely imperative to figure out ways to implement into your business to make the business more efficient, more streamlined. So right now I'm not the sky is falling. I'm not like a chicken little type person in this space. I think that one, I think it's going to take more time than people think for AI truly to be at a level of human intelligence, if you want to, I guess, use that terminology to replace actual like human capital. But especially in our industry, like we've been talking about, it's such a heavily service focused industry and it's a relationship business. That's the biggest part that I don't think we touched on. But our business in real estate is all based on relationships. And I don't think that's ever going to be replaced by AI.
So you
Now,
don't see you don't foresee a dystopian future where there's AI realtor robots, hanging their shingle at Keller Williams or wherever, and going house to house, doing exactly what you do, but doing it much quicker and doing all the title work and processing internally, and basically cutting out all the parts of the industry because they're a super AI robot. You don't see that happening?
no, I mean, Skynet is real.
Terminator 2 tried to warn us. I guess we didn't listen.
No, I think, yeah, I'll be honest with you. I could actually see a world if, let's say, Elon with these robots is really able to do it at scale. Sure, we're big, especially big brokerages with the budget to do it. There's going to be showing robots, but that's such a small part of the business and the industry. That's just what I think everyone thinks of when they think of real estate is like, oh, opening a door, showing a house. Or obviously, like everyone talks about with Zillow, Realtor.com, or Homes.com, that there was a, at one time there was this idea or this fear after the NAR lawsuit that all of a sudden the Zillows and the Realtor.coms of the world would displace listing agents and buyer agents because they would just do it all one stop shop. And I'm sure that's going to happen. And they are continuing to try to like integrate that into the business where it's like, hey, now you can search and find the home. Then you can click a button and that'll connect you with someone to write a contract for you. But as you know, with on the legal side, there are so many little nuances and things that happen once you find a property from a legal contract standpoint, from an inspection standpoint, once you get the report back. I mean, there's so many things that you have to negotiate, so much feedback, and it's never going to be the same. Like it's an assembly line in the sense that like each stage or milestone of the transaction is the same, but what happens underneath each milestone or stage is going to be different for every single transaction and every single client. And so I think implementing AI to like I'm sure a lot of people have talked about, to take over those simple, repeatable administrative tasks. That's definitely coming. On the title side, I think there's definitely going to be utility and application for AI to take on a lot more of the same repeatable, mundane administrative tasks, and then even maybe some of the initial processing side of things. But there's still so much in these businesses that requires human relationship interaction, and so I think it's just going to make the best of the best even better.
All right. And looking ahead, like 10 years down the line, what do you see? What do you see for this industry? Do you see it, the same as we see today, or do you see any big changes coming that that we don't know about yet? And how are you planning to adapt to those changes as they come on?
I think that in 10 years, I mean, it's hard to predict out that far, but what I would see is kind of like what I just how I left that last answer, that the best of the best will get better. I think that you're going to continue to see more and more consolidation. I mean, you're already seeing it with these brokerages acquiring other big brokerages. So in the big box broker world, I think you're going to see more and more consolidation in the market. I don't know that that's necessarily a good thing, but I think with that consolidation creates more opportunity for teams like ourselves, where it's small, boutique, bespoke businesses. And because our size business or team, like it's not a volume based hire business, right? And so that means we're really looking for like high quality agents to represent a client, or high quality employees to handle the title services and escrow services side of things. With the consolidation, I think it kind of waters down a little bit of the quality that people are going to get in the services and representation. And so to me, that creates more opportunity for small boutique practitioners like ourselves.
Is there anything particularly that worries you about the future?
I think, like I mentioned, the consolidation is worrisome to me. I think that no, I don't tend to worry about things that I can't control in the future, to be honest with you. And in my mind, the way that I always operate is if there's a significant change or if a complete to go back to litigation, if a complete practice area just disappears overnight, it just well, one, I try to foresee that, sure. So I'm always trying to look ahead in that respect to figure out how I can pivot a business or pivot it into a new business based on where an industry may be headed. So it doesn't worry me. I see if there's any significant market or industry changes, I see that as a future opportunity in a lot of
Yeah.
ways.
And I understand you guys at ASG, you're obviously very, it's a compact group. You're very nimble and you can turn on a dime, if the market were to change and you can go from selling, pre-existing homes to the new build model, like back to selling dirt to, just basically follow the market where you need to be. And
Yeah.
also, you don't have a massive overhead that you're accounting for, similar to the bigger competitors that you've talked about.
Well, and the other thing to add to that too is one thing that we really leaned heavily into when we started ASG was the marketing and branding side of things. That's a big part of our business, and I think that's another thing that really separates us in the marketplace here in Tampa Bay. There are a lot of agents that do a really great job with it, but that's one thing that we spend a ton of, if we're going to spend any money, we spend a ton of money into the marketing space, in the branding space. And initially it was because, like we've talked about so far, everyone that I knew locally in my sphere of influence, they always thought of me as attorney Stefan Alvarez or title Stefan Alvarez. And so for me, it was to help rebrand and reframe how people looked at me in their minds, right? But also for Alan, for my partner at the time too, because he had spent 20 plus years in New York City in finance and day trading before moving back to Tampa. And so everyone thought of him as kind of finance numbers and day trading Alan. And so it was really to rebrand both of us. But it's been one of the, I think the best investments we made because we spent, it's a lot of time and commitment and energy and effort to do it, but the rebranding has worked. But more importantly, to your point, in a lot of ways, we joke about it all the time, but it's kind of true. We're essentially like we become a media company that happens to be really, really good at selling and marketing real estate for both
Right.
buyers and for sellers. Combined with then obviously like our professional services background and experience, which is super unique to have such, have legal experience and expertise when looking at these transactions, understanding and having visibility on the title and escrow side of things and working close hand in hand with lenders because that's a critical part of the title piece of the business. So having all that experience is super unique too. But the marketing part is, I think, something that I think we've done a pretty good job of figuring it out. We're always learning and trying to figure out new ways to better market and better brand. But yeah, I mean, to your point, if the real estate industry completely shifted and this dystopian world of AI, bots, and robots took over, then we have the ability to potentially move into the media marketing space.
And as you moved from starting one business to the other over the years, what one habit would you say that's made you successful in all the ventures that you started?
Patience and persistence.
And what's the best advice that you've ever received from anybody?
The best advice that I've ever received from anybody was probably it was a similar theme, starting with my dad, both my parents, and then a couple of mentors that I had along the way. But similar theme, which is just always do the right thing, especially when no one's looking. And that's how I've always just operated in life and in business. Because at the end of the day, it's, to me, the most important. Money comes and goes, businesses come and go, but I want to always operate at the highest level, ethics and character wise. And so, doing the right thing when no one's looking is kind of like a huge motto that I always come back to.
That's a great answer. I was hoping you were going to say the advice I gave you: don't send that email, but I
That's a
guess
good one
not.
too, though. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I thought that was sage advice at the time. But
Good
what
one.
you said, obviously, and that's a sentiment that a lot of people have heard, and a lot of people model their lives by. Always do the right thing, do right by others, and good things are going to happen for you.
Yeah,
Uh,
the rest will take care of itself.
yeah. What defines success for you now?
That's a great question. I think about that all the time too. I'm always chasing the ability to have businesses that help people, but that allow me to spend more and more time with my family. Because as you know, with kids and my boys, I look back even just like a year ago and how much has changed and then even things that I miss. And so, the more that I can create businesses that are serving others while also allowing me to have some of my time and freedom back with my family, that's a true measure of success in my mind.
That's an awesome answer. Now we're gonna have a little bit of fun. We're gonna move
All
into
right.
the speed round questions, and it's just quick questions. It can be yes or no. You can expound on them if you like. The questions are self apparent, and you should understand them. And if you don't, just ask me to clarify. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Moon landing? Yes or no?
Yes.
Coke or Pepsi?
Neither. I don't drink soda. But
Okay.
if I had to know, if I go back, was a bit of a Diet Coke addict for a while there.
All right. Aliens?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot recently too, since the most recent lunar trip here. I mean, I'm not going to go on a rant or
Please do.
down a black hole here, but it's pretty insane if you think about our solar system and the fact that we're one of however many planets within our solar system orbiting something that's a fireball that's traveling through space that's being pulled, like our entire solar system is being pulled by some sort of dark matter that we don't know about yet, and it's strong enough to have a gravitational pull to pull our entire solar system towards it, that it will eventually collide apparently into another solar system one day. If you think that we're the only like living beings or sentient beings in the universe, I think you're out of your mind. Yeah.
All right.
There's
If you
probably
could,
some other planet right now where people are asking the same question, and we're the aliens.
uh, no, that's a fair response, and I'm not going to judge you for saying that. If you could
I
fly,
feel like there's judgment happening.
no judgment here. No judgment here. If you could fly, time travel, or be invisible, which one would you pick and why?
Time travel, because I can just think of a million benefits to being able to travel in the past with knowledge from the future.
And I'm with you on that. My only concern is that what's the clothing look like when I arrive in that back time? Do I show up like this, or am I wearing time appropriate clothing so I don't stand out like a sore thumb and they immediately catch me and kill me? That's a concern of mine when I've thought about time travel, is that when I show up and I'm wearing a golf shirt and some Lululemon pants or something like that, like they're gonna know and maybe call me a witch.
You will be burning a steak very quickly for sure.
immediately. I mean, so it's like, you show up in like, I'm going to show up in like Elizabethan garb with a wig and, powdered wig and the whole deal, so I can blend in and, maybe exist for a few minutes before I find the time machine to get back to my real time.
You got to go period appropriate for sure.
100%. That's never adequately explained to me in any time traveling movie. And I'm always concerned about that for when they go back.
Yeah.
What's your favorite food?
I love all things Asian cuisine, but sushi. I'm obsessed with sushi and Vietnamese food.
Okay. And does ketchup belong on a hot dog?
No,
And this is a pretty hot question I'm about to ask you here. Best Cuban sandwich in Tampa.
it's a good question. So, like I said, one of the things that ASG does a lot of is marketing, and we do a lot of top five because we fancy ourselves community Tampa Bay experts, right? Because all four of us are born and raised here. So, this is a long answer to a short question, but we just actually shot a top five Cuban reel that is going to go live in the next week or two. So, I can't answer your question right now. What you're gonna have to do is tune in and follow ASG on Instagram to see our top five answer.
Great answer. And I certainly will. What's your favorite sport or hobby?
Yeah, I'm obsessed with like racket sports a lot. I'm not nearly as good at tennis as you are, unfortunately, but I've been playing a lot of paddle or padel lately. That's
Right.
where
I've heard it's great. I've not played it yet, but I'm dying to try it.
I need to get you out there. You need to come play with us one day.
In your opinion, is rollerblading cool?
This is a trap question.
Well, I've just seen videos online, so you seem to be a very proficient rollerblader. So I'm just trying to dig down here.
Uh, Rollerblading has, will, and always be cool, in my opinion.
Wow, that's a bold statement, Cotton.
I'm gonna make rollerblading cool again. I'm excited to yeah. I got back into rollerblading. It's exhausting and a crazy workout, but I live on a cul-de-sac, and I used to play a ton of street hockey as a kid. So my goal is to get my boys on rollerblades so that once this cul-de-sac is repaved, we can play some intense cul-de-sac street hockey with the neighbors.
What's your favorite book, movie, song, or sequel? And for this one, if the book was made into a movie, you can do both.
Oh man, okay. That's a loaded question too. My favorite book is Atlas Shrugged, actually.
Okay,
Uh,
very heady answer. I like that.
Yeah, I don't know, I love that novel, and then all the, obviously, things that are woven into it, but, yeah, so it's probably my favorite book of all time, although I will say when I was a kid, I used to love Where the Red Fern Grows.
Such a sad book.
Captain
When you're
Yeah.
not doing what you do, what do you like to do?
Man, people ask me that, it's such a boring answer. I literally just like hanging out with my wife and my 2 kids.
That's a great answer. That's not boring.
That's one of my favorite things to do.
Yeah, because the kids and your wife, like, it may be a boring answer on the page, but at the end of the day, when you're hanging out with your wife and kids, there's some stuff going on?
Oh, yeah, so
It's not gonna be boring for sure.
it's chaos, but, I mean, I legitimately, like, hit the jackpot with my wife. I mean, she is my best friend, and no one makes me laugh. Maybe you, you're a close 2nd or 3rd, but, no one
Third.
makes me laugh more than she does. She's hilarious, so she's legitimately my best friend. I mean, she checks, like, all the boxes you can imagine for a wife and for a partner. So, yeah, getting to hang out with her and the 2 boys is, like, that's all I'm always looking to do on my free time, and then maybe sneak in some Fidel and some good
Nice,
wine. I do like to drink good red wine.
nice. Tell me, where can people learn more about, ASG Real Estate and what you do?
I think the quickest way would be give us a follow on social media. And we do a lot of, like I said, marketing. So if you can follow us on Instagram, our handle is asg.luxurytampa. That's the best way to find ASG.
Awesome. And who's one person you think I should interview next?
Good question. Any no topic specific area or industry?
Just somebody you think would be a good interview. Give it to me.
All right. This is kind of a lazy answer, I guess, but he's a super interesting guy. It's real estate adjacent, or it's real estate industry. But a friend and a client of ours, Ryan McGinnis, who owns RPM Realty, he's a super successful hard money lender here in the Tampa Bay area, and a really just interesting guy. Talk about hobbies. He's got a lot of really cool, fun hobbies. And we actually just interviewed him on he was just our guest on ASG's podcast, Only Agents. So yeah,
Nice.
he's really interesting guy and doing a lot of really cool stuff here in the community.
Well, Stefan, it's been a pleasure, sitting down with you today. I really appreciate your time. And, just thank you very much for being on Pod Number.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thank you, man. This was fun.